This episode is brought to you by Rules and Regulations. Rules and regulations, if you follow them to the letter, you'll always be protected. Just ask Joseph Goebbels. And now, here's a song. Oh, here's a song. I said, here's a song. So I'm making notes with my mouth. That means it's a song, and a song would make it easier to talk about the things that we'll talk about today. But we won't have a good song that mentions all the things because that would be a bad song and bring much depressed things. And so now, here they are now. Your invenerable host, Carlos Kareem Wyndham. I don't know. I don't know even what that was. Oh, shit. This is the part where I'm usually not talking, but I'm already talking because I'm just a second behind. Today's episode, a little bit went into it, a little bit of preparation, a little bit of thought, a little bit of consideration. And there will be a little bit of thought and consideration going into, I hope for you, how much of, if any, today's episode you choose to join me for. But before we get into any of that, let's do the fun part. Let's do the fun part. Oh boy, oh boy. There's still more fun before it gets rough. Don't worry. A little more fun. Hey, guess what? On Thursday, which is coming soon, I'm going to be here talking to Little Milagro Enriquez, and we are going to be talking about environmental displacement, home education, and environmental education in the age of Trump and under the epidemic of Trump's mumps. We'll get into a bit of that. I would ask you this favor, and we at Smoke and Mirrors would ask you this favor. Would you please consider sharing what you are watching right now? You don't have to do it right this second, but it would be great. And if at some point this episode, another episode, you think it's a thing that should be shared, please do. If you are on the Facebooks, if you are on YouTube, go ahead and like it, subscribe to it, do the things there, hit a bell. I think there's something about a bell. I don't know what the fuck that is. And if you want to support, that's called Passing the J. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com and you can go to Smoke and Mirrors CCB. Ruthie, Erica, Amber, Aaron, Seth, Lisa, Kristen, Renice, Michael, Natalie, and Juliet, Tarika, and Tracy have all done that. Or you can share any of the three ways there. $5 or less. Drop $5 on it if you want, or don't. It's fine. I will do this for free for as long as I am physically and emotionally able to do it. Have you a warm bevy? I have. You're really going to want one today. It's going to make things go down easier. Warm bevy, cool bevy, whatever you need. How you doing? It is rough out there. We are home working at home still. We are homeschooling still. The world is falling apart and running out of fun culture and comedy things to talk about. And so I want to warn you ahead of time before we dip our toes too deep into the thing that today is mostly the bullshit. So if you are up to hearing bullshit, you're going to want to skedaddle because gotta talk about a thing that gonna be talking about forced sterilization. Yeah, I know. That's not funny. Gonna be talking about forced sterilization in the United States. We could use a light day, especially after yesterday, especially after last Thursday. And it seems like every time we think we have hit what I'm at the point Dante didn't count up all of the levels of hell. There are so many more levels of hell, so many more depths, and we just keep going and going and going and going and going. Let's have another toke before we get into the bullshit. Let's have a joke too. Let's have a joke too. That'd be a nice way to start before we start talking about human sterilization. Um, what's invisible and smells like carrots? Bunny farts. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Buckle up. Here we go. First, we're going to begin with the celebration of Black woman. We are going to celebrate Dawn Wooten. Dawn Wooten is the whistleblower who is out at the Irwin Detention Center in Georgia and let us know that she was hearing rumors a week ago that there may have been some forced sterilization happening and some forced hysterectomies happening at this ICE detention center in Georgia. And it turns out that once she said that she thought that there may be, well, then suddenly all of the many people who were being the victims of forced hysterectomy found themselves gathering and talking to each other with their lawyers. And that brought us to the moment that we're in now, in which we are now aware that no fewer than 17 different women at the center and at ICE centers have now had forced sterilizations, forced hysterectomies. Even if you wanted to have a surgical sterilization, there is that is one that is a thing that is rarely given to by hysterectomy. Hysterectomy is a total removal of the ovaries and womb. That is not, you don't have to do that even if you are trying to sterilize somebody. That is a vicious thing to do, and when you're doing it without permission, it is abuse, and it is bordering on, if you do it with any great succession, an act of genocide. If you could do this to a particular race, for instance, if that race were being held in detention centers along a border or some such like that. Well, let's give a shout out to Black women for being the superheroes and for alerting us to this. And we'll find that through history, it is Black women who have kept us appraised of a lot of the ills, and have made possible a lot of the progress that we've made in minimizing, mitigating as much of this as we can. And if there is going to be any serious mitigation going forward, is going to be in cooperation by standing in deference to the leadership of Black women who have already done much of the work. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that Black women aren't your superheroes, and it's time for you to get off your fucking ass and take care of this yourself. You got to call a congressperson. You could vote. You could do all sorts of things. But let's get into it. The what was happening is that the full hysterectomy was happening, And what was happening is that this doctor was being referred to by nurses and patients as the womb collector. This would be Dr. Mendra Amin. I want to make sure I am saying that correct. I do not want to throw anyone under the bus who doesn't belong there. This man, though, I would like to throw him under the bus and then back it on up and move it forward again and back it up and move it forward a few more times. There he is, Dr. Womb, the womb collector. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know. This is not new, though. That's what is so upsetting. Many of us have known that for some time, that there has been a very, very, very long history of forced sterilization in this country. And a lot of people who seem to be only coming to terms with that now are white people and folk who have not had the opportunity to be exposed to these truths. And it's not fun to be exposed to. So what I did is I refreshed my own research. I dusted off some stuff to bring you as much as I could. I'm going to miss some things. I'm going to get some dates wrong probably. I don't make any promises, but I'm going to try and share with you as much as I can. Like I said, it's going to be a hard ride today. This is not fun. Woohoo! Okay, that's better. All right, let's get into it. I want to talk about it deeply today, not only because of the horrific things that are happening to the women at the border, that are happening to the women in Georgia, that are happening to the women in the ICE detention centers across the United States. I am sure because it is the sort of thing that might be propagated and might even be put forward as an idea to be doing by the president. Now, do we know that? No, allegedly. Let me sprinkle some allegedlys in there. But I do want to say a few things, and we're gonna get there. Okay, let's talk about President Good Genes first of all. Your guy has an obsession with good genes and having good genes in the population. Okay, this is a thing he said quite some time ago. I believe it was on Oprah, that you have to have the right genes. Now, this was either on Oprah or The View. I don't remember which one because I don't watch those. Hey, this is not a new conversation that he's having. Now, when he says genes, I want to be clear that this is not a smart person talking. And so when he's talking about genes, he is not talking about DNA splicing, anything so advanced. He's talking about some very old tropes and very old ideas. And specifically, what he's talking about is eugenics, which is not actually genes. Okay? Eugenics is the idea of human pedigree. Human pedigree, much like farm pedigree. Truly, much like farm pedigree. And it was the value of human pedigree because what was happening is that white people were trying to produce the best white humans to create a people's state here on Turtle Island, here in these United States. And that's what was happening. And it's got quite a history. In fact, it is all about eugenics, which is not science. Let me see how. There's a different way I can maybe say that. It's not science. Eugenics is not science. Never has been. Never would be. This is a thing that was created by one Dr. Charles Davenport. Now, when I say created by, when we're talking about modern eugenics, I'm not talking about like he made it all up. This is Dr. Davenport, seen here with a bit of tissue paper from the bathroom still stuck to his chin. Um, we're not talking about, when I say modern eugenics, I'm talking about from like the 1800s and forward. Okay. I'll also be talking about contemporary eugenics. Dr. Davenport, even in terms of eugenics, which was really around trying to understand heredity and heredity in humans as well as in people, Davenport was taking this to a new level and comparing it very much with animal husbandry. Sure, why the fuck not? And huh. As we know, with the enslavement of Africans in the United States, the ideas of animal husbandry were also being utilized. And that's where black people and how black people were being farmed in order to try to make the largest, most farmingest mandingos and most fertile and caring black women. Well, this guy, even in terms of that stuff, was a complete quack. Your guy was essentially the pillow guy of eugenics. He was so off that he was so fucked up he wasn't even wrong in a lot of his theories, to the point that the other eugenicists in Britain and around the world were like, "Hey dude, shut up. You're making us look bad. We're trying to prove that our queen is a pure blue blood and that is a thing. And you're making that near impossible by taking the idea of what we're talking about out of blood and eye color and moving it over to these ideas of poverty and whether or not there's a musical gene and these sorts of ideas that there is no scientific backing for and never has been. In fact, this would be the idea that would eventually develop into what we now know is scientific racism. Get a fuck in you. Had to get a sip of fucks. Had to get a sip of fucks. I was running out of fucks there. This idea was embraced to the point that people were going to their state farms where the animal husbandry was happening, and they were presenting their families in front of judges in order to get and earn their state eugenics certificate, which guarantees that, quote, "I have examined the gender of this, the center of this card and find perfect physical and mental balance and unusually strong genetic love possibilities, well fitted to promote the happiness and future welfare of the race." Of the race. And as you can see in that photo, the race was very clearly Diana, Princess Diana, and Bob Hope. That would have been the whole race. And this is an idea that is embraced. The idea of good genes. Good genes. You got good genes by your guy. By your guy. Rapist, president, impeached, fucking grifter, Donald Trump. Captain Good Genes. Captain Good Genes. Well, when we talk about eugenics, we talk about where it could ultimately lead. And one of the fears is that where it could ultimately lead is to a situation in which, for instance, there were sorts of regulations happening around abortion and who could and couldn't have a baby, such to create a very Handmaid's Tale circumstance in the United States with the Supreme Court if, for instance, they were to stack it immediately after the last liberal judge had died under his direction during a lame duck Senate. Now, I don't want to get all into the politics of it. We're talking history, not talking politics. And the reality is that this idea, this image right here, that's a fantasy. it's a fantasy. It's the worst case fantasy and worst case scenario of what would happen if there was, in fact, something called positive eugenics, right? The idea of positive eugenics meaning that we're going to self-select and create the best kinds of white people by creating the good white people, the as the Greek referred to them, gold-hearted white people, and trick them into fucking other gold-hearted white people, and then they would run society, and that way the silvers would just be fine having what they needed, and the bronze would never know that it happened because you could do it in a selective lottery. This is what he taught Socrates. Socrates took this idea, and the Socratic method of thought and argument, of course, is what was adopted by the universities here on these shores, and the basis of a lot of what we now think about as reasoning in the United States. Well, the reality is that it's not a Handmaid's Tale that looks quite like that. What we might get is a world of Karens if their dream came true, which would make the Handmaid's Tale more of a Karen's tale and more of a Karen's world, which could end up looking much more like this. Not so much like this, I'm sorry, but much more like this, right? Well, that last would be the fantasy. This might be much more of the reality of what that could end up looking like. No need to worry though, because of course, that would not be done with the permission of black women, who would interrupt and correct such a thing. Again, not your superhero. Black women are not your superhero. They are here to live their whole black lives and sometimes just have to intersect with Karens. Sometimes they just got to intersect with them. But they will remind you that white women did in fact elect Donald Trump, the same Donald Trump who may bring us to a place of there being the horrible fantasy that you see coming in your HBO series. Anyway, what's this got to do with eugenics and such, and the positive eugenics? Well, again, we got to know that the president believes in good genes, and that while the president believes in good genes, we are in a world where for the positive, for the best case scenario for white women, that could lead to this kind of a scenario. That doesn't lead the same place for everybody, because there's also a negative eugenics. And that's what we have to talk about when we start talking about sterilization in the United States and forced sterilizations in the United States. First, we have to understand that gynecology in the United States was born on the backs of enslaved African women, who were then taken around and toured to show the advancements of gynecology that could be performed benevolently on white women. Benevolently. Not benevolently. But certainly not mercilessly and not murderously, intentionally all the time. We'll just experiment. Because again, they were using ideas around husbandry, and they did in fact believe in their heart of hearts and mind of minds, based on scientific racism that had already been established, that perhaps Africans were not people and were animals, and if there were going to be animal testing, why not on your enslaved properties? Why not on your enslaved properties? So gross. So gross. Anyway, that was the birth of modern gynecology. Speaking of modern OBGYNs, hey, there's Cliff Huxtable. Fuck Bill Cosby. fucking monster cast himself as a gynecologist with a private practice with a door in his basement. Fuck you. We have not. I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten. Anyway, back to this motherfucker here. This is Davenport again, right? The guy who brought this whole idea of eugenics here. And what he brought into the political dialogue was this question of, well, okay, so now if we can get the positive, the golds to be making golds, there's what if it's too many of the bronzes and the silver's mixing, and so we need to have fewer bronzes and silvers. We got to get rid of our own bronzes. So who could we sterilize? Well, first he went with folks who were considered to be daft. That's not a diagnosis. Hysteria in women. That was a reason. Poor. That was a reason, and is a reason that they continue to offer that the state simply can't afford to take care of all the welfare of the children and the welfare of mothers who happen to be unemployed, because they maybe are part of an economic system in which their employment never really existed as an opportunity, because they were in fact enslaved at a point, and that free labor is part of what the country is built on. So there's not going to be employment. And if they do find viable employment anywhere, including in sex trades, we're going to make sure that they can't unionize. But also that will apply to domestic work. Maybe, theoretically, allegedly. I don't know. And of course, it went along lines of race as well. And so this got argued about, right? Not by the populace, though. This was happening already. So all those people were getting the sterilizations. Also, I don't want to make this seem like it's only women getting sterilizations, because men were also being sterilized in the prison population. Again, when we say prison population, you have to remember that the prisons are primarily filled as a way to get free labor out of a population that was no longer going to be the free labor population. So what could they do except make up rules to find ways to get black people into prisons? The first police were slave catchers. Hey, good times. Good times. So Davenport and his ideas were being argued through the courts, and eventually they made their way up to the Supreme Court. And that I'm going to look down here because I want to make sure I get the date right. That was in 1927 that it made it all the way to the Supreme Court in Beck versus Bell. This was a case in which a doctor had taken the idea to the courts because he wanted to ensure, with the case study of one 18-year-old woman, girl, that if he were allowed to perform the hysterectomy on her and the forced sterilization on her, he would by law have to be able to perform it on whoever, including all of those other classes and castes of people about who we were speaking before. This was the idea. And it was an idea that once it got to the Supreme Court was, of course, triumphantly upheld. In fact, it was upheld by, and the quotation that I would offer you is by one of our most esteemed judges in the history of the United States, Oliver Wendell Holmes, seen here performing analingus on a badger. I'm stuffing in all the jokes I can. This is so fucked up. In his court decision, the way that he said it is that 3 generations of imbeciles is certainly more than enough. That That got past the Supreme Court in an 8-1 verdict. The one dissenting opinion offered no written statement of any sort. Just gonna nope, nothing at all, nothing at all. Well, that was the point at which the United States said on the books that it was oakley dokley to go ahead and exercise negative eugenics, meaning lowering the populations of the bronze caste through forced sterilizations, which happened any number of ways to any number of populations. Now, you have to keep in mind the genocide that was to take the land. The attempted genocide is what I like to call it, because there are Native American people alive. That means you didn't get their genes. The genocide that was necessary to take that had already happened. Okay, so this was for the new America. This was the new rules for the new America. That in the new America, there were going to be populations that it was just going to be okay to do this to. Here's the funny thing about that Supreme Court decision. It was not overturned or repealed until 1960. Hey, so that stayed on the books according to the Supreme Court. That was just what it was until the 1960s. And a lot of populations, as you might imagine, ended up being quite touched by this long history of forced sterilization. You know what? Let's take another break. Let's take another break. This is just we're gonna, this is just, I don't understand white people and white men in particular. They just keep we own everybody. We own everybody. And then when you say, hey, everybody, you know that they own everybody. They think they own you. They think they own white women. They think they own your uterus. Pay attention to this. They don't even think we're people. What do they say? They don't say, oh, there's nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. I can vote for this. Why would the white women vote for the fucking shit that's going to have something like this happen to them? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because black people would get things and all of the welfare mommies would actually have a check and they could have a television and a refrigerator. Oh, no. Anything that black people could possibly benefit from, we will vote against our own self-interest to stop them from getting some of that. So this is what? What do you mean the mic was still up the whole time? No, I said we were taking a quick break. Let's get back into it. Forced sterilization in the United States is bad and affects all women. But in particular, there were populations being targeted. And the highest rate of forced sterilizations happening was in California. California had by far the highest per capita amount and number of forced sterilizations happening. Guess why? Yeah, migrant workers. That's right. Latinx people and Asians who were forced to be doing work. You know, the same people who are picking your vegetables for you during firestorms and fire hurricanes happening under COVID, aka the Trump smumps. That was one of the populations targeted. Another population that was wildly targeted was Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was being targeted. It's crazy. Puerto Rico experienced in 1937. They were being targeted, and they had 37 30 37% of the childbearing population was sterilized under US law to get the eugenics happening, to keep it to try to whiten it up a little bit. That's a third, one third, one third, one third of the childbearing population was forcibly sterilized in Puerto Rico, and in fact, the United States was even flying doctors from Puerto Rico to the United States to learn how to do the sterilization in the most efficient way, and then flying them back to Puerto Rico to go ahead and make sure that they got into the population and the hearts and minds and guts of the women everywhere. That's what the official state policy was on Puerto Rico. The same Puerto Rico that you may remember was recently devastated by Hurricane Maria, and was offered, of course, paper towels. Paper towels. That's what Captain Good Jeans offered to the population of Puerto Rico after the last hurricane, and fucking wow, dude. Also now is offering a multi-billion-dollar package now that he needs the votes of Boricane citizens, and knows that he is about to get his ass whooped in a general national election. Like whooped. Rather than going ahead and using the Defense Production Act to provide electricity to the people of Puerto Rico, he tossed them paper towels. The same paper towels that he couldn't be bothered to use the Defense Production Act when we here in the United States, because of his stupid fucking response to COVID, ran out of goddamn toilet paper because white people started hoarding all of the butt tissue, started hoarding all of the shit tickets. Can you just fathom what's going to happen when the food shortage starts? Just imagine what it's going to look like when people realize that there is not enough of this magical immunity serum that Trump is offering the people. Holy shit. And of course, they were continuing to do the practice of sterilizing black people, in particular in the South, via everything, and in the North via the prison industrial complex, as we now know it, where they were sterilizing again men and women, and men by and large by coercion. You can get out of prison if you agree to go ahead and be sterilized and have a medical castration. How about that? We'll go ahead and do that. That'll be fine. That'd be super duper. Especially if you're a rapist, like all the black rapists who rape all the white women who are in prison for doing such. Because, of course, that happens. Ever. Oh boy. So that is a little bit about the history of forced sterilization. It did in the United States. There was a short period. It's in fashion again now. What's old is new again. You know how it is. Kids want to see Genco jeans. The 70s show would have to be the 90s show if we were going to put it on now. In fact, we are further now from the time that the 70s show was on, the 90s, than was the 90s from the 70s of the famed 70s show. There is no history, is what I'm saying. But the point of there being no history and why that matters to this at all, there was a very short, brief, winky. There was a wink of history where this was not thought of as favorable, not thought of as a good thing to do, and that was the period when soldiers returned from World War II. Seen here. I know that's who you thought of when you were thinking of soldiers returning from World War II. And if it's not who you thought of, fuck you. Weird flex. The reason is was because Hitler. I mean, that was the reason. The reason was because Hitler. It was not, the white people here didn't want to see themselves as down with Hitler. And so it lost, we lost a lot. The United States, when I say we, I don't mean me, but the United States lost a lot of its taste politically to keep doing the eugenics and through forced sterilizations and attempted genocides. At least for a minute they did, until they forgot, and of course the denial of the ovens and all of that, which is also as part of the thing. But here's the thing about it: when we say because of Hitler, I want to be very, very, very clear. Seen here smiling. I want to be very, very, very clear, okay, about a thing. Here's where Hitler got his idea, and here's a quote that he offered. He said, "There is today one state in which at least weak beginnings toward better conception of migration are noticeable. Of course, it is not our model German Republic, but the U.S., in which an effort is made to consult reason at least partially, by refusing immigrants on principle to elements in poor health, by simply excluding certain races from naturalization. It professes in slow beginnings a view that is peculiar to the people's state." That's from a little book called Mein Kampf, which reportedly is the thing that is kept on the nightstand of President impeached rapist Good Genes. That's a terrible photo. That's not fair. Can we? I'm not here to food shame. No, well, yeah, I'm sure if he had super genes, like that would not be happening. But can we get a better photo, please, of the man? Okay, so here's seen here. Attempting to stand, I guess. Wow. Okay. Why the fuck does he stand like that? He stands like Donald Duck. Okay, this is ridiculous. Again, I feel like this might be a little body shamey. Can we get a different, like a presidential photo of the president up here so we can have some sense of who we're... There we go. That's okay. Fuck. That's just a fucking picture of Thanos. That's not... Have you ever noticed that Robert Downey Jr., who plays... I said Robert Downey Jr. I'm not going to pretend I didn't say that because of what I'm going to say next. Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man, can't say Thanos. Just look back at... what's his name? Thanos. His name's Thanos. Not Thanos. Okay, that's fine. We can use that picture. It doesn't matter. Mr. Impeached Rapist President Good Genes here. has recently been saying that what he doesn't like most of all about some of the framing and some of the dots that folks are now connecting between us and between the US and the detention centers and the forced sterilizations and the concentration camps, that it may be a bit Hitlerian. But the thing is, it's not Hitlerian. Hitler was a bit of a United Statesian. Hitler was copying us, not the other way around. Not the other way around at all. And if you take all of those things together and you combine that with the fact that he also knows that we are living under Trump's mumps right now. And he has been talking about creating herd immunity. I know what he called it. We're not here to talk about that. Under Trump's mumps. That if he does successfully cause herd immunity under Trump's mumps, that means that approximately 2.1 million people are going to die because of it. Right now, we have only lost 200,000 only, for which he gives himself an A plus for handling it. He said he gets a D for the idea of the press he's been able to get. He's got a D for his press group, but an A for actually handling the Trump's mumps. It kind of seems like maybe he fucking is Thanos. Maybe it is his actual plan to just wipe out half the population to create a utopian society. And wouldn't that fit in perfectly with the idea of eugenics? Wouldn't it fit in so? He does not like the idea, though, taking this back to Irwin Detention Center in Georgia. He does not like the idea that we would be thinking about this as any kind of concentration camp. But what do you call that? Those are children. Many of them were children, because if they got into those camps when they went up in 2017 and they were at that time 17 or 18 years old, they're now adults. They became adults behind those fences, walls, in the cages, with the COVIDs, just all over the place. And of course, all of this is an agenda being set by Stephen Miller, who is a 30-something policy advisor on all matters immigration, and a what's that word? Nazi. And all of this being defended by their genetically superior Attorney General William Barr, seeing here, pulling legal precedent out of his ass to figure out a way to protect them and support them in their efforts to cleanse this earth of all of the bronzes and make sure that the silvers know that they are not up to the pedigree to keep reproducing with the golds. And just kind of seemed like that might be part of why we needed to talk about this today. This is not a fun episode. This is no good. This is not a fun episode. But why would I think that? Why would I think that this could happen? Well, here's the thing he said at a rally when he was running in 2016 in Biloxi, Mississippi. I have good genes and all that stuff. in which I am a believer in. I'm sorry, I said in which I'm a believer. He doesn't know how to, he can't speak English that way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misquote him. That's rude. And if this is too far away and this seems like it's the past, when I say that there is no history, the past is the present, it's just what you do today. Well, here's what he said just the other day. You have good genes. You know that, right? You have good genes. A lot of it's about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? The racehorse theory. You think we're so different? You have good genes in Minnesota. Right from his mouth hole. That's where all the brain thoughts were supposed to stay inside, or in his copy of Mein Kampf were supposed to be, but they came out of his mouth hole as he was looking at an all white crowd. Pretty amazing. Why would anyone compare this man to Hitler when Hitler was basing his ideas on the ideas held by former presidents of the United States? That's backwards. We should be comparing him to Thanos. This has been another episode of Smoke and Mirrors. What fun we have here. Hey, do you have a thought about some of the things we said? Do you wanna drop a message of love and encouragement, or one of shut the fuck ups? Well, you can do all of that at smokeandmirrorsccb@gmail.com. We also have an IG, that's Smoke and Mirrors CCB, and I have a Twitter at Caballo Negrito. This is a thing that is produced and hosted and sometimes written by myself, Carlos Kareem Wyndham, and it is also produced by Tracy Tatamy. And hey, we got through it. Okay, hey, do me a favor, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Dear God, would you wash your hands and stay inside? And if you gotta go outside, wear a mask. Do your day. Oh, you know what? Come back. Fill out your fucking, not you. You get out of here, you son of a bitch. Fill out your census there. Fill out your census, because that's also the way they want you to. They want, if you're brown, if a police officer or someone that you would want to maybe date, who you wouldn't want to think that you're brown. Make sure you mark brown in your identity on that census too. Don't mark white. That's how they're trying to increase the white population in the United States through the census, the positive eugenics model again. But do fill out your census, because that's how we're gonna get our anything, or hold them accountable ever. If no one's gonna hold them accountable. I don't know. Fuck it. Please vote. And also you can riot too if you have to. That's the voice of the unheard. Okay, bye. We'll see you next time. I love you.